We got our first client in San Francisco by chance because I have a friend who was working for them, and he told me, hey, they need a developer. Do you want to provide this developer? So I told, obviously I want. So we started like going directly to the swimming pool we have of connecting talent from Argentina with opportunities in the States. So that was maybe back in 2015 or 16, where we completely focused on the States and said, okay, this is our focus. At that moment, we knew how to run the company. Let's suppose we were 28, maybe 27, 28. At least we knew more than when we started, but we were so disconnected from the ecosystem. That's one of the biggest mistakes we made.
Let me just kind of drill in on that for a second. What do you mean by that, disconnected from the ecosystem?
I mean that, as I told you, we were engineers. We knew how to do our job, how to write code, how to create digital products, how to hire engineers, but we didn't know how to connect with people outside the company. Know how to connect, how to network, or where to go, or if we wanted to go to the States, how do we go to an event?
You're talking about like, where do I just show up in Silicon Valley and say, hey, I'm here?
Hey, this is a guy from Argentina. I came with alfajores. I don't know.
Welcome to the Founders Journey podcast. Inspiration, education for founders by founders. Welcome back to the Founders Journey podcast. Another fun edition with my co-host here, Peter Dean. Peter, good to see you again.
Yeah, this is a really important topic we're going to talk about. I'm really excited about it.
Yeah. No, this would be a lot of fun. It's something. It's an area that I spend a lot of time focusing on. I think it's a really important one. So, we're joined today by Roger Einstoss. Roger is the co-founder, I guess, of Brintly. Really connects American tech companies with Latin American talent, particularly in the Argentinian market. So he's been around the industry for a long time. A lot of experience in entrepreneurship, software development, mentorship, to start us with things like that. So, but really with a particular focus on offshoring talent, particularly in Latin America. So something I spend a lot of time dealing with our venture firm. So Roger, welcome to the podcast. Glad to have you.
Hey guys, thank you so much for coming. I'm doing great.
Yeah, good. So you're we're talking to you down in Argentina today, right?
Yeah. We are in Argentina. We are happy now because yesterday we won the semifinals or the Copa America. So we have the final this next Sunday. So we are excited to be again in another final for soccer, football for us, which is really important.
Yeah.
And we are also going through like a really, really heavy winter here. Something not very common, but we are dealing with it.
Well, being up in Colorado, up in the mountains in Colorado, we live through the same cycle, but we're just on the opposite end here. So you're getting what we just had. So
Yeah.
let's where I'd love to start out is offshoring talent is something we talk about. We've talked about actually a few times on the show. I think it really is an important topic. If you're a startup today, if you're a founder, you're launching, you're starting to assemble your team, why should you be thinking about offshoring your talent? And particularly, is there why Latin America as a place to be doing that?
Well, I think that companies are trying to spend less money hiring engineers, not only engineers, but also marketing people, sales people. And when you think about offshoring, about having teams, remote teams, the first thing people usually talk about is India or Eastern Europe. And many times they forget that there is a huge hub of talent and amazing people in Latin America. Especially when it comes to Argentina, there are several advantages. First of all, time zone. Time zone with most countries of Latin America is great. If you are based in the East Coast, you will share the whole day with your team because we are only 1 hour ahead of Eastern time. And if you are located in the West Coast, you will share half of the day because we are only 4 hours ahead. Second, you get access to amazing talent. For instance, Argentina ranks top one when it comes to English skills, according to Coursera. We also rank in the top 10% of best universities worldwide. We also are the country with most amount, the country in Latin America with most amount of Nobel prizes and the most amount of unicorns per person. And we, as a matter of fact, we had our first unicorn 12 years ago in 2012. It is Mercado Libre. Maybe some of the audience know it. It's like our eBay, but it's all across Latin America. And all of those things creates amazing talent that it's really ready to work with startups, with growing companies, because they know how to deal with changes. Living in Latin America, it's about dealing with changes every time, basically.
That's a really good mirror too. Like you talked about the country and changes in a startup or a new company. That's pretty much the world you live in, especially in the early days. Building technology is like
Yeah,
constant changes.
absolutely. I mean, due to the macroeconomic context, we faced a lot of challenges. So those challenges made us more creative, more resilient, and taught us how to make things happen despite the context. So that's perfect when it comes not only to an early stage startup, which is important, but also when you are in a phase of scaling your company. Because all of the challenges that we all face like entrepreneurs are mostly always the same, like growth, people, hiring, retention, being cash flow positive. So if you have a team that is ready to deal with those things from the engineering point of view or from the marketing point of view or whatever, you are more than ready to face and to go to that battle and start fighting.
Why is it? You mentioned this before, right? When you think about offshoring, particularly engineering talent in a startup, India, Eastern Europe, I think some Asian areas now are becoming more common. Why has Latin America not been sort of at the top of that list in terms of recognition where, startup founders say, hey, that's where I should be looking? Because there are, like you said, there are really big advantages to Latin America.
Well, that's a good question. I don't know if I have the answer, or I don't even know if there is a correct answer, but I think that it's because of the volume of the amount of talent that we have been creating against India, for instance. India has been creating tons and tons of developers, and Latin America started creating talent maybe 15 years ago when the first unicorn came. And since then, the process has been accelerating more and more. And right now, you have a lot of unicorns all over Latin America. You have
Mhm.
many people that is located in Colombia, Mexico, Uruguay, or Argentina, but they are working for companies in the States or in Europe. In our
Right.
particular case, we are only focused on the States, but there are also people that work for Europe. So I think it's more because of the world context. Maybe the war in Ukraine or those things, the crisis, the VC crisis that makes that people in the States are trying to understand how to spend less money, but they still need the same size of team because they have running products, but they have to spend less money. So I think all that combination creates a perfect momentum for Latin America.
You mentioned about these people working for other companies in other countries. Is that a competition that you have for getting talent for yourself? Like, do you see big companies in the United States coming down and just getting their own talent directly in Argentina and Latin America?
No, no. I mean, it can happen maybe with big companies, but not with startups because
Yeah.
legislations in Latin America are complicated. You have to understand about compliance, about exchange. Imagine that in Argentina we have like 25 types of dollars, and last year we have more than 300% of inflation. So if you don't understand how to deal and how to attract the best talent in those conditions, it's not an easy market to get into. That's why we have our company in the States, or legal entity in the States. So one of the benefits that we give is that you will be hiring an American company, but we will provide you with talent from Latin America. So you will not have to focus on how do I hire someone in Buenos Aires, for instance. Maybe it's happening with big companies like Microsoft. I mean, Microsoft, Google, Meta, they all have their branches here in Argentina, but not with startups.
It's interesting. I was telling Peter and I, we were talking about this before. I had a company, I actually acquired a company in Mexico. We had about 50 engineers, I guess, there in Guadalajara. One of the interesting things that we saw in that market, so we were directly employing that team. One of the interesting things that we saw, and again, this is Mexico, it's different from Argentina, but you talk about sort of the broader Latin American market, Mexico to Latin American market. We had a situation where we were directly employing, and then Plaid, Microsoft, Oracle, Salesforce, a number of large American companies then came into that Guadalajara market. I mean, we literally lost almost everybody within a couple months,
wow.
Right? Because they were coming in. So it was just an interesting dynamic when you talk about the challenges of directly employing as opposed to going through another company or something that we didn't see coming, and it was really rapid fire where they had posted them, and they were paying, I mean, just huge Silicon Valley salaries at the time, right? So it was a real challenge. How did you talk about how you got started, because now you're in this business, right? You started Brintly. Talk about what Brintly does, how you got it, how you got started, why you got started, and kind of your own sort of entrepreneurial journey to get going here.
Well, I started coding when I was 15 years old at the high school. So since then, I always knew that I wanted to do something with computers. And that time, I didn't know what was like a software engineer or software. That was 20 years ago. I'm 35.
Right.
But after graduating from high school, I started working in a software factory, like in a company that produced software, and started to understand how was that world, that helping clients, creating products, digital products. After that, I changed to another company where I met my co-founder, one of my co-founders. We are three, Facu. It is weird because we always knew that we wanted to do something, because we wanted this freedom of being an entrepreneur. A couple of years later, we understood that it came with another bad things. But I'm still. Yeah, but I'm still choosing it. I love being an entrepreneur, but it's the truth. It's a roller coaster. And we were also working in a company that was going down. They was going through a merge, and nobody knew what was going to happen. So that was the moment where Facu told me, okay, this is the moment we have to start doing something. And we both used to be really operationals, like executors. We both used to be really from the operational point of view, engineers. So one of the challenges that we faced was how to run a company, because we were engineers, we were developers, we knew how to write code, but we didn't know anything about how to run a company. Sales, marketing, people, how to hire, nothing. So we got our first client in San Francisco by chance, because I have a friend who was working for them, and he told me, hey, they need a developer. Do you want to provide this developer? So I told, obviously I want. So we started going directly to the swimming pool. And after a couple of years of working for that client and for clients in Argentina, we started focusing on the States because we saw the opportunity that we have of connecting talent from Argentina with opportunities in the States. So that was maybe back in 2015 or 16, where we completely focused on the States and said, okay, this is our focus. We have to build teams. We have to build digital products for clients in North America. And it was at that moment where we started. At that moment, we knew how to run the company. Let's suppose we were 28, maybe 27, 28. At least we knew more than when we started, but we were so disconnected from the ecosystem. So that's one of the biggest mistakes we made, being disconnected from the ecosystem. And that
So
made.
what do you mean by that?
Yeah.
Let me just kind of drill in on that for a second. What do you mean by that? Disconnected from the ecosystem?
I mean that, as I told you, we were engineers. We knew how to do our job, how to write code, how to create digital products, how to hire engineers, but we didn't know how to connect with people outside the company.
Mm-hmm.
Know how to connect, how to network, or
Mm-hmm.
where to go, or if we wanted to go to the States, how or where. Not how. I'm not talking about buying a ticket. About, okay,
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
how do we
You're talking
go
about
to an
like, where
event?
do
Yes,
I just show up in Silicon Valley and
yeah.
say, hey, I'm here?
Just go to an event
Right.
and say, hey, this is a guy from
How did
Argentina. I came with alfajores. I don't know. So
how did you overcome that? How did you figure this out? Because this is a big deal. Like, you're
well,
like, okay, we have the capability to do this, but how do we find an audience and then connect with them? Like, how did you do
Well,
that?
it was a matter of time and trying,
Yeah.
trying, and trying. By the beginning of 2022, after COVID, I found a network of entrepreneurs that it's called Entrepreneurship Organization. It's worldwide, but I'm part of the chapter here in Argentina. And they have a kind of system that you meet the same people monthly to talk about your problems or your challenges or whatever. So I remember my first forum. I went and tell them, hey, I have this problem. I need to connect more with the ecosystem. I need to be more involved in the States because we have clients. We are doing great, but I think that we can't we can't predict our growth because we get clients just for referrals, and that's great because it's word of mouth. But we can't say, well, next year we will have, I know, 20 new clients because it's out of our
Right.
control. So one of them told me, okay, how many times a year you go to the States? And I remember I told him for vacation or events because I went to Disney many times, but and he told me, okay, how I can't remember the exact phrase because it was in Spanish, but he told me, if you want to be really in the middle of the scene and being involved in the States, you have to be there. So if you are not ready to move there, you have to go there at least once a quarter, 4, 5,
Mhm.
6 times a year. So since
Yeah.
then, I don't live in the States. I live in Argentina, but I go to the States many times a year. Uh, so that changed a lot because it gave us like a, a huge picture about what's happening. And I
Right.
started facing that most of the companies are facing the same challenges over and over and over. And when you start talking with others, you can start figuring out how to solve things and help others, uh, get the help from others. So,
So Roger, you come to the state, and again, just to kind of get really tactical on this, because I think what you're talking about is a really important topic, right? So you get this council. I was a we seem to talk about EO on this show almost
Two in
every
a row.
right. I was an EO member for 15 years. I was on the international board for a
Wow.
long time. I'm a huge fan of EO. Um, back when EO first started in the first 10 years or so. But okay, so you get this advice from a foreign mate within EO who says, go to the US. You need to spend time there, right? If you want to break into that market. And I think this is the case for any market that an entrepreneur wants to break into, right? Whether it's a geographic market or it's an industry or something. But what did you do? So you because you buy a plane ticket, you come to the US, but then you show up in the US, but you're still a guy from Argentina. You don't have the network. How did you start to break in then? Like, where did you go and who did you talk to start to get those doors open?
I started going to events. I made like a research and discovered that you have tech weeks all over the states, mostly New
Yep.
York, Los Angeles, and San Francisco. You have Suster,
Yep.
you have TechCrunch, Disrupt, you have different kind of events. And even we have most of our clients in Ohio because we started with one client there and one client brings another one. So I went to a specific event in Ohio, and not only that, I met most of those clients for the very first time face to face, and that was like mind blowing. I mean, it
Right.
was an overnight change in our relationships, meeting
Yeah.
them in real life. So I started going to events, talking to people. That helped me a lot to change the pitch or the way we tell about our service, about the things that we do. I would say that it's not easy for someone who is coming from Argentina, but the United States is made by people from all around the world. So it's really
Mhm.
common to go to an event and find someone from Latin America, from India, from Europe, from London. So even more when you go to New York Tech Week, it's really difficult to find someone from New York because
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
most
Yeah.
yeah, most of the people in the states are all around the states. They were born in Colorado, but then they went to study to Stanford in San Francisco, and then they moved to New York because they are working in fintech or whatever. So I started trying to understand more and more the ecosystem, the culture, the things that they do, the job. Uh,
Yep.
I, I, I mean, I know how to work with American companies because I've been doing this for 15 years, but it was a completely another experience when we go there and be in the middle of the field, understanding, like watching the movie, but this time from the first row. So
Right.
it's something that we are still discovering. I personally are
Yeah.
still discovering. For instance, this year will be the first time I'm going to San Francisco Tech Week, and this is because San Francisco is not the best or the first choice for us because we understand that it's like full of sharks trying to eat you, and we believe that it's like a huge
Why don't you? What is
you
that? What do you mean by that? I'm interested.
I mean that if you go to San Francisco, you will find many companies like my company that are doing the same. Obviously,
Tons of
each
them.
Yeah.
one has their things that make difference. But if you go to Ohio, for instance, we have clients in Cleveland, like I told you, and it's weird to find
So
company from
you're
Argentina.
the unique one. Yeah.
Yeah.
You're the unique one.
And Ted,
So
so you're saying
so
like if you go to San Francisco, like half the people you talk to are doing what you're
probably.
doing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Okay.
And in those events, I assume that most of them will be selling something. And I'm not going to events to sell. I think, as a matter of fact, that it's pretty impossible to get a client from an event just overnight. I go to events because I want to be in the ecosystem. I want to meet people. I want to meet potential partners, help others. Eventually, they will help me. So that's the way I like to create my network. But you know that you can find basically anything in those events.
So that's really been the path for you, Roger. I mean, you come to the U.S. and you talk, and you're using this word ecosystem, which I think is a great word for it. You're coming
Absolutely.
into the U.S. and you're using that to basically build your network, and you're not, and that's really kind of been the primary focus for you. It's just to start to establish those contacts, work your way in, network your way into these environments, and that's really been it. It's not. I mean, you're not running, direct marketing campaigns into the U.S. You're not.
Yeah.
You're really just establishing that network with companies that maybe use your service in secondary markets in the U.S.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Is
we
that
did it,
is that
this
accurate?
like direct campaign a couple of years ago, but it didn't work. And I've been talking with many companies that provide services, and everyone tell that outbound marketing uh, doesn't work for this kind of service, because if you are willing to buy like a small ticket, you will probably give it a chance just because you receive an email. But with my clients, I create like a long-term relationship. So you it's like I think that it should be full for us to think that we can create a long-term partnership with a client that will hire with us an entire team of 4, 5, 6, 10 people just for an email. And another thing is that we are not selling cakes that we can, or iPhones that we can create the need. I won't talk to you in an event and make you realize that you need a developer. You need to be top of mind of those people, of your
Right.
potential audience. And when they need a developer, they will remember you and say, "Hey, I remember this guy from Argentina." Um, so that's the way I think it works, and it's working. It doesn't mean that maybe there are another tactics. We also started doing events. In those events, like Tech Week, we host our own event, and we are now doing the fine tuning about um, the topic of the event. For instance, in last Tech Week in New York, we did an event about Latin America talent, and we did a panel where we discussed about these things. And now we are trying to understand if that's the correct approach, or if we should go for another approach that maybe is just, I know, a coffee tasting or a networking event, because people maybe don't want to go to a panel and see someone talking. They just want to go for a coffee and have good conversations. So it's something that we
Right.
are still testing, A/B testing.
I think what you're doing is amazing. I think a lot of people think it's easier to get customers. Greg posted something recently about, being in for the long haul. I think that's really what you've done. You've built these bricks over time. What What do you think? Like, I know it's not easy to do that, and it comes with a lot of ups and downs. So, what was like one of your scariest days as a founder in doing this? I mean, you came to US, you don't know what's going to happen. Obviously, it's worked out well, but I'm sure before that there were times that you felt like this isn't working.
Yeah, there are many times where you feel that as a founder. That's the true. But something that worked for me was being like a real person and talk about these issues with other entrepreneurs. And when you start realizing that someone who you think that, okay, this person, it's the best of the best in this industry, and you realize that he has the same problems. He also had problems
Mhm.
with their managers. He also had problems with his wife. He also has problems with growing the company, or he also lost 3 clients in a week. You start realizing that it's part of the game. And that's why there are people that are ready for being entrepreneurs, and there are another people that are made for being employees, and that's perfectly okay. You know that in Argentina, this phrase, it's like not funny or uncomfortable, because if you say something that you were born to being an employee, it's like an insult. And I always say that it I mean, it's not that way. I really think that I have friends that have developed amazing professional careers being employees, and they earn tons of money, and they're employees and they're happy doing that. And
Mhm.
on the other hand, I have friends that are also entrepreneurs. They sold their companies. They have problems selling their companies because it's not always easy or straightforward. So it's a matter of being like a real person, and have these kind of real conversations when you, I always say, you open your heart. And if you are ready to give your knowledge or on your time to the entrepreneurship ecosystem, it paid off 100%.
What are the biggest lessons you've had to learn, or the biggest skills you've had to learn along the way, Roger? I mean, if you're kind of talking to other founders today, either maybe that are potential EO members down the road, what are the biggest skills that you've really had to learn as a founder that maybe you didn't possess when you first started?
Making tough decisions in the company. I used to be the person that procrastinate decisions regarding firing someone, for instance. Uh, and I
No, no one
learned,
does that.
yeah, and I learned that it's necessary. And the way I learned it was because many years ago, 5, 6 years ago, I remember we fired a developer, and the team told us, okay, it was high time. We have been waiting this for 6 months. So at that moment, I realized that when you, as a manager, even more as a CEO, realize that someone is not working, the team is suffering that person in the daily basis. So that
Yeah.
was one of the biggest lessons. The other one was, or the other one is being resilient, because I always thought that this world of being resilient, it was something for marketing for entrepreneurs. But after some crisis that we had as a company, like everyone have, I understood the real meaning of resilience. And it's not about suffering. Many times it's about understanding that your business is changing, and you have to start thinking how you will adapt your business to this new reality, like it's happening with AI right now. And that's resilience too. It's not only about losing all your clients and understanding how you will pay the salaries next month.
What was the situation, Roger, that led you to learn that?
I hit my face many times against the wall, I would say. Well, one situation that I particularly remember is a couple of years ago, we lost our top three clients in the same semester. So it was less than a semester, because it was from March to June. We lost our
Yeah.
top three clients, 4 months.
What
It was
percentage of your
because
revenue is it? Just for context, how much, like, what percentage of your revenue did those
for
top three?
40%, 50, probably
Whoa.
Holy crap! So
50%. Yeah,
you basically, within 2 months, you cut your business fell
yeah,
in half.
yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
And that was not because of us. It was because we used to work a lot with startups, with early stage startups, and then the VC crisis started. So all of them just shut it down, the companies, and they told us, okay, I love you guys, but I don't have money, and I can't raise money because of the market. So I will just shut down the company. And it's tough because
Yeah.
you get involved with those entrepreneurs and the business. You are part of that journey.
Hmm.
With many of them, we
Yeah.
have been working for 4 years, 5 years. So that was a
Yeah.
particularly tough moment because it was my nightmare. since the moment I created the company, I always thought, okay, if I have to face this situation, this will be a nightmare. And it happened. It just happened. And we had to react and have to face that challenge. And we did it really fast. We had to fire good people, which we try to recommend to another companies. But that was the secret sauce to keep living. And then uh, being starting like the starting again the reconstruction of new clients, healthy clients, not like too early stage startups, more SMBs.
Yeah.
So if I
Right.
see it with the Monday newspaper, like if I see it, seeing the history, it was one of the best thing that happened to us. But obviously,
Mm.
in that moment, was horrible.
Roger, you did something that Greg has told me before. I mean, we've been friends for a long time with businesses, and I remember one time during an economic time, not this past one, the one that you're talking about, and he said, "We have to be prepared. You have to be prepared, and you have to be prepared to move fast, and you have to have a plan like today." And it was like the day everyone's realizing this is going on, and what you did is exactly what Greg would recommend. You know,
Yeah, and
you just gotta act. If you sit on your hands, it just is worse. It just gets
Yeah.
well, and besides
yeah,
having the certainty that it will happen again someday, because
yeah,
that's the
Right.
market. I
yes.
mean,
We
and
know it's
and
gonna
when
change.
when you
It's
talk,
cycles.
I talk with many people in EO that maybe they have companies of 200 people, and you feel that they are, I know, top of the rock, and they say no, but we used to be 500 a year ago. So in
Right.
in
Yeah,
in, in that segment, they are also doing bad. I mean, because they used to
yeah.
be double. So those kind of conversations, make you feel like you are empowered and you are the right person, and you must start making decisions, because otherwise you will die and you will ended up working for a company. And if you're an entrepreneur, maybe it's because you are not ready for that path.
We went through a cycle that Greg, and I went with together. It was the beginning of COVID, where we had to let people go. Right, it was just had to happen. There's nothing we could do. I know a lot of companies went through this, but if you do a good job and you do a good job for your company, we actually hired someone back who went somewhere, got another job, came back, and then was a good home for them again. And so you're taking care of this place, this company that they can work at. And even though at the time it's not a very comfortable, a good decision, letting people go, not for cause, is the worst possible thing to do. It's very hard. Um,
Yeah,
it's very emotional for me to do that because we care about the people. But being able to have something they can come back to is really your job, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah,
it
we,
sounds
we
like you
did
did a good
it.
job of that.
We hired 2 weeks ago or a month ago someone who was fired in that crisis, and it was really like a successful story for him and for us, because we both were really happy working together. But it's just something that we couldn't handle at that moment. So
Yeah.
but that's why I strongly think that culture in a company is the key for success. Um, that's some of the things that make us different. For instance, we have only 6% of rotation in our people, and if you compare that metric against the market, it's around 25%. So that's because we take care of people. We try to understand their needs. We try to assign them to projects that they want to work with. It's not always easy, obviously, because matching the perfect person for the perfect project, but that's the thing that we do differently. And that's where we can give American companies value and allow to people in Latin America to get those opportunities. Maybe otherwise they will never be able to get them. So that's why we believe that we are a bridge in the middle.
Yeah. It's funny you use the word resilience, right? And you tell the story because I think, that kind of existential crisis, right, that you guys went through, something that almost every startup will face something like that. And every company who's really starting to scale will face something. It may not be 50% of their business in a couple months, but it may be, right? I think you said it was one of the best things that's ever happened. And so often you think you're resilient, right? You think you know how to get through these things. Then you're faced with something like that where it's just instantaneous decision making, where you almost can't think. You just have to act. Just take an action, take an action, take an action. And it's really amazing how often we hear stories like that, where, and both Peter and I have had experiences like that, where then you kind of get to the other side, you look back at it and say, in a weird way, I'm really glad that that happened, right? Because it provided this foundation not only for the business, but for you personally as the leader that you become and things like that. So, those things, I just think it's a good thing for founders to hear, because so often I think it's easy to shy away from those scary problems and say, oh, it's this nightmare scenario. Yeah, you don't want it to happen, but at the same time, they're survivable,
Yeah.
right? And if you act fast and you have the culture in place, like you said, you can survive these things.
And all the stories we hear, like Roger said, there's people you look at and you're like, oh man, everything was good for them, because you see the outside face, they have a
Right.
smile on, it's all good, but it's not. The truth is, it's not. Like even the unicorns, it is not a pretty picture of what that journey was. It's just not how it goes. That's
Right.
what you alluded to in the beginning. You said, yeah, not for everyone. It's a roller coaster. And I'm sure there's people that look at you with your company and say, wow, I wish I could be like that. But you're like, I don't know if you know what you're talking about. Like me,
Right. Yeah.
No, and
you
besides,
wouldn't
Yeah.
have done that. Like,
in our case, this external crisis helped us being better co-founders, like better splitting the roles, understanding that okay, we are in a crisis. I count on you. You will do this, and you will that, and I will take care of this. That created like even a more stronger relationship between us. Uh, I know that it can happen all the way around. It can end like splitting the co-founders, but in our case, it helped us to make us more uh, like yeah, more like one person. We are three, but we think like three different people, which is good because each of us give the point of view, but we always ended up with the decision, and we are all supporting the decision. So if we decide that this is the best thing for the company, okay, we all go with that decision. Then we like in 6 months or in some moment we will understand if okay, that was a good decision or not. But no faults, no guilty, no that was we failed because that was your idea. No, you have to have a healthy relationship with your partners, because you will spend with them more time than you think,
Yeah.
probably in
Well,
the early times more than with your family.
it becomes very binary, right? These things, those kind of crises like you said, they'll either split a partnership and you're going to find out exactly what you're dealing with, right?
Yeah,
And it's either going to cement it or it's going to kill it, and
yeah,
it's not going to be anything in between, right? Um, and you find out very fast what you're dealing with, because you're going to find out the resilience in your partner as well, right? You're going to see, if you're in a partnership, it's not only your resilience, but it's your partner's resilience as well, right? If they can't
yeah.
handle it, that's it.
That's
That's
it's a teamwork. and
Yep.
that's how it works.
Yep, absolutely. Well, this is great, Roger. This is you've got, you got a great story. If somebody wants to find out more about what you're doing at Brintly or connect with you, what's the best way to do that?
Yeah, I'm on LinkedIn, Roger Einstoss. I think that it will appear my name in the title of the
Yep.
episode. Or
Yep.
if you want to see what we do at Brintly, the webpage is brintly.com. I'm also on Twitter or X. I know if someone called it X. The best choice is LinkedIn. I'm really active on LinkedIn, posting, telling about this journey, about the case studies, about the things that we are doing, about my trips to the States. So it's usually the best way of reaching me.
All right. Well, we'll put the links in the show notes. Roger, great talking to you. It's I think obviously remote work, offshore outsourcing, things like that are something that we spend a lot of time in my own venture practice and my own venture fund. And it's something that if you're a startup and you're scaling up, you really have to be thinking about this stuff. You've really got to be thinking about where, really global talent is now more accessible than ever. If you're in the US, outside of maybe a couple sectors, and you're just hiring in the US developers instinctively, like, you really have to be thinking about the efficiency and the cost efficiency and the labor efficiency and things like that. So
Or even just finding
100%.
them, right? Like,
yeah,
Yeah.
or
And
just finding the right talent. Yeah.
yeah.
I always say that you don't even have to shut down your team in the States. I love to work
No,
with
no, not at
people.
all.
You can have part of your team in the States. Many companies just hire the management team in the States and then the developers in Argentina. We have a little bit of everything, but both cultures combined, it's something amazing. But it's
Yeah.
difficult to explain if you have never worked with Latin America, because especially in Argentina, that little thing that Latin America people have, because of the context, all the things that we have been talking, it's really different from the rest of the world. So happy to receive here you in Argentina.
Absolutely. Well, we're happy to go to Argentina. That's for sure. I'm a big
Yeah.
fly fisherman, so I've been trying to get to Patagonia. Both Peter and I are
Yeah,
big
no,
fly
but
fishermen, so we're trying to get to Patagonia to do a trip.
okay, so you went. Okay, no, yeah, it's 8 hours, 9 hours. It's long flight, but it's okay.
Yeah.
You just go to sleep and then you wake up and are in the land of the red wine and the good meat. So it's worth it.
Lovely.
All right. We'll be there next week. Peter, what do you think? We go like Saturday.
Okay.
We should do live.
That's
live
right.
will
there.
start.
We'll do this again. We'll do it live for sure. The lane of red wine and good meat and good fly fishing.
You got us. We're good.
Okay,
That's right.
perfect.
That is my definition
I got you.
of heaven. That's right. Great to meet you, Roger. I appreciate you coming on the podcast. To see you next time on the Founders Journey podcast.